All right, today we are going deep on a major cyber attack against a huge US company. And what we're going to find is that it tells us a whole lot about the messy, really confusing, and honestly surprisingly simple reality of what modern cyber conflict actually looks like. So, let's start with the big question that's at the heart of this whole story. How in the world can one single stolen password cause such massive disruption for a multi-billion-dollar global company? The answer? Well, it's a lot simpler and in some ways, a lot scarier than you might think. Let's get into it. So, our story really kicks off in March of 2024. A giant in the medical world suddenly finds its basic day-to-day operations under fire, not from a business competitor, but from a totally unseen digital enemy. And the company we're talking about here is Stryker, a Fortune 300 medical tech giant. I mean, this is not a small business. This is a massive global corporation that makes absolutely critical surgical equipment used in hospitals all over the world.
And listen, this was not just some IT headache confined to a server room. The company itself reported that this cyber attack had very real-world consequences. It was messing up their orders, slowing down manufacturing, and causing shipping delays. This is that moment where a digital attack becomes a very real physical problem.
So who was actually behind all this chaos? Well, let's meet the group that claimed responsibility, because their name alone immediately set off a bunch of red flags for intelligence agencies. The group calls itself Handela. Now, cybersecurity experts are pretty convinced this isn't some independent crew of hackers. No, they're widely believed to be a front for Iran's Ministry of Intelligence. And their specialty? Psychological operations and these things called wiper attacks, which are designed not to steal your data, but to just completely destroy it. And that right there is exactly why this whole incident made everyone sit up and pay attention. See, Handela usually goes after smaller, easier targets. For them to go after a Fortune 300 company like Stryker, well, that was a huge and very public escalation.
Now, here's where the story gets really interesting. It's how they did it. You're probably picturing some incredibly complex, custom-built piece of malware, like something out of a movie. But the truth? Well, it turned out to be shockingly simple.
So, get this. The hackers were publicly bragging that they'd wiped over 200,000 devices. A huge number. But when Stryker's own investigators went looking, they found no trace of any fancy malware on their systems. Nothing. The reality of how they got in was way more low-tech. It all boiled down to a simple three-step plan. First, they got their hands on the login credentials for a high-level administrator, probably using some common password-stealing malware. Second, they just logged in. They used those stolen credentials to get into Microsoft Intune, which is the exact same system Stryker uses to manage all its company devices remotely. And finally, once they were inside, they just used the system's own built-in features to send a wipe command to thousands of corporate phones and laptops. They didn't have to kick the door in. They just walked right through the front door using a stolen key.
So, let that sink in. This massive disruption wasn't the result of some brilliant new hack. It came from a basic security failure. A single stolen password for a powerful admin account is like giving a burglar the master key to every single room in the building. And according to the experts, that key might have been out there for sale on the dark web for months or even years.
As you can imagine, a high-profile attack like this on a major American company got a response. And it was a direct and very public one from U.S. law enforcement, who decided to hit the hackers right where it would hurt their public image the most. The FBI seized $10's main website. I mean, one day it was the group's digital trophy case where they boasted about their hacks and posted stolen files. And the next day, boom! It was just a splash page with the logos of the DOJ and the FBI, announcing that the domain had been taken down. But this is where you really see the cat-and-mouse nature of modern cyber warfare. The group just hopped over to their channel on the Telegram app, basically said, yep, they got our site, and then promised a new one would be up and running soon. It just goes to show you how difficult it is to permanently shut these kinds of operations down. So, why does this one incident, a stolen password, a simple wipe command, why does it matter so much in the grand scheme of things? Well, because it's a perfect little snapshot of what modern cyber conflict is all about. As Gil Messing from Checkpoint says, taking down their website was a big deal, because a huge part of what these groups do is about perception. It's about creating that psychological feeling of damage. But at the end of the day, it's really just one move in this constant, ongoing game of whack-a-mole. So what does this one event really show us? First, the power of pure confusion.
Was the target the medical company, or did they mistake it for the Stryker military vehicle? We don't know. Second, it's all about psychological warfare, maybe even more than actual technical damage. Third, it shows that our adversaries see private companies in the defense supply chain as fair game, as extensions of the military itself. And finally, and this is probably the most important takeaway, it proves that sometimes the biggest threat isn't the most advanced one, it's the simplest one.
And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This attack on Stryker, it was disruptive, it was public, but it was also pretty unsophisticated. And it makes you wonder, in this new age of conflict, are the really dangerous threats the loud ones that grab all the headlines, or are they the silent, far more advanced attacks that we never even hear about?